Fair, accurate, to the point. This is Face the State on Montana's news station.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us today on Face the State. I'm Erin Shermley. April is Autism Awareness Month, and no one has done more in the last year to support the cause than Alexis Wineman, our Miss Montana. Alexis is here with us today with her mother, Kim Butterworth. Thank you both for being here. Alexis, you just have a couple more months to wear the crown. Tell me a little bit about what this last year has been like.
It's been crazy, exciting, and a little stressful, but incredibly worth it. And I am completely blessed to have been on this whole roller coaster ride.
What are you doing in the next 2 months to kind of wrap up your reign?
Well, I'm going to be heading all across Montana, continuing my tour, and then I'm also going to be heading out of state to places like Chicago and to support organizations such as Autism Speaks, Generation Rescue, and Ability Path. And I have a great relationship with these organizations, so hopefully more opportunities will open up even after my reign.
That's really exciting that you've created such a national awareness, not only in Montana, but like you said, in places like Chicago. Did that partnership with these causes come from just being Miss Montana and your platform?
I did get their attention, it did, but what I've noticed is that people still want to continue with this even after my reign is done. So it came down to the point where I have to tell people, you do realize I'm not Miss Montana after June. And they're like, we don't care. And that's really incredible, just to know that I've made such an impact that it's going to keep continuing and not just fade away after this whole experience is over.
That is really exciting, and congratulations for that too. Can you tell me some of the specific things that you've been working on? Your cause is autism awareness, and your tagline kind of is autism doesn't define me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've used that a lot.
That's when you Google your name, that's what comes up. And so I don't know if you've Googled your name recently, but
I have. I'm not gonna lie. I think everyone Googles themselves every now and again.
So what specifically have you accomplished, let's say, in the last year that you would like to share?
Well, I actually just got back from San Francisco last week. I was there with an organization called Ability Path, and I was there talking with people who participated in the hackathon.
What's that?
The hackathon is not an organization, a program that they put on every year, sponsored by AT&T and Autism Speaks, for a whole bunch of people to get together, the hackers as we call them, and they develop apps for the iPhone and Android for people on the spectrum.
Interesting. Why is that beneficial? Why is that an important cause?
Well, with technology being so advanced as it is, it's important to integrate not only life skills with these technologies, but it's often known that people with autism just respond to technology better than people.
Okay, so these apps are just more specifically designed for people who are on the spectrum?
Yes.
Okay, that's really exciting. Is it common that, like in the past, Miss Montanas have traveled across the country like you have?
I'm not sure exactly. I don't think so. I don't think to the degree I have, but that doesn't mean they haven't made a great reign for themselves.
Absolutely.
I remember I went to the eastern part of the state. Everyone knew Veronica, the Miss Montana before me. So the reign is what you make it. But just because you don't go out of state, and go do these things doesn't mean your reign wasn't successful.
Absolutely. And Kim, have you been along on every one of these trips?
For the most part, yes.
What do you do for a living?
I'm the executive director of the Cut Bank Education Foundation, a nonprofit in Cut Bank.
Has that been difficult to I know that you are working through your trips and working half days to get to your trips, so is it tough?
I've been very blessed to have a very supportive board. They looked at this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Alexis, and they said, you go, you do what you need to do for her, but I still have to do that job too. So it has been a little stressful, but luckily it's been a very enlightening journey, and I'm probably looking forward to June more than she is.
Don't take it personally. No. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about your diagnosis of autism. It was later in your life. You were 11, is that right?
I was 11, yes.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that. Like, as a mom, what were some of the behavioral things that you were seeing that made you think something's up?
Well, behaviorally, issues started to begin when she was 2. And every time we went for help or would talk to someone, they were kind of written off as, oh, it's just a stage they're going through.
Like, what kind of things did you notice when she was 2?
Temper tantrums, where her whole body would stiffen up, but it would take a long time for her to be able to relax. She was delayed in talking, delayed in fine motor skills, some very delayed. So those were things that, and she has a twin sister.
Oh.
So when you have 2 of them and you're seeing one able to do all of these things and one that's not, it causes a parent to be concerned.
But doctors said that it was just a phase.
They said it was a phase. They did say that she might be developmentally disabled to a point when she was born. The twins were born premature, and Alexis did have to go into neonatal, where her sister didn't. So we were given a heads up on that, but they said they didn't think it would be, severe.
Yep.
So, we tried to follow up on it, and, we just said, well, in her own good time. And
Okay.
so that was kind of what started it. But as things went on, she was a little slower than the rest of the kids in the class. She always got the same amount of work done, but it took her longer.
She had to work a little harder.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it really wasn't until 4th, 5th grade, when the academic environment changed and timings for math tests and
Well, can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like, it just would take you a long time to finish a test, so.
Yes, and usually the teachers were very supportive about that, but once timings happened, you had to get it done in less than 2 minutes.
Oh, I remember timings. Okay, just to
Horrible,
see,
aren't they?
I'm a journalist. I don't do math.
Maybe this is my future.
I think so. Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. It's just so that made maybe my grades ended up going lower because I didn't get as much done as the rest of the kids, and then of course homework had to be done, and I had short-term memory problems, and I still do, and I couldn't remember. I would get my homework, I'd like, all right, I'm gonna get this done. Go home, I completely forgot I had homework, and
Really?
when I did remember what I had for homework, I would forget when it was due. So, of course, like any kid, I put it off till last minute, only to find out last minute was 2 days ago.
And when you're 11, you're not really taking notes and, making your to-do list for the day. Okay.
so the frustration level built.
Okay.
And the temper tantrums, as we called them then, we'd now refer to them more as meltdowns, I think is a term that parents who have kids on the spectrum understand well, increased to the point where they were pretty common. And so at that point, that's when we decided we needed to seek help.
So then at that point, what was the help that you did seek? And
Well,
Tell her, Mom.
well, first of all, she had been in speech therapy since she had started elementary school. So we had known that that was a real issue.
Can you tell from my charming accent?
I think it is charming.
Oh, thank you.
So she had been in speech therapy, but the behavioral issues continued. And so we first approached our pastor to talk to her because
They did not have me exercise, don't worry.
I can see why stand-up was her talent.
Exactly. But we started there, and our pastor soon came to us and said, hey, this is bigger than us just having a chat and working through a problem. So then we went to a therapist, and it was kind of beyond her capability. And then we went to, she referred us to a doctor who, unfortunately, there was a misdiagnosis at that time, but she had the classic case to most people at that time of being a depressed child.
Wow.
And
So at no point had autism come up?
Autism,
besides
the
when
word-
she was 2 and you thought maybe?
well, I really didn't even have a name to it at that point to think autism, because it wasn't as prevalent then. I mean,
They
you've got to
just
think,
mentioned like something. That's,
Okay.
that's all that they mentioned.
you got to think that's 16 years ago.
Right.
Almost 17 years ago. And so it wasn't as common to think that that was a possibility.
Right. Okay.
So thanks to our family doctor, when he examined her for just a cold, he realized that she should not be on the medication that she was on.
For depression.
For depression.
Okay.
Especially at that age, and then referred us over to a pediatric psychologist and psychiatrist for further evaluation. And that's really when the process began to get a proper diagnosis.
Wow.
And then kind of started an 18-month process before that was completed.
Okay. So then what was the next steps though? Because her behaviors were already learned, right? So I guess we were talking a little bit about how therapy wasn't necessarily an option, how it might be for some children when they're diagnosed early.
Well,
with autism.
and I only learned this later, but from talking to a lot of parents whose children were diagnosed at a much younger age, 2, 3, 4, 5, there were different types of therapy that were available to them. At age 11, the first thing I got asked is, what medication is she on? That seems to be what people kind of think. We chose not to go a medication route. We decided to go with what, natural and logical consequences for behavior. I mean, she needed to learn how to cope. She needed to learn how to respond to life in general, and to realize that this may be a challenge she will face the rest of her life, but she needs to learn how to deal with it without the medication. And luckily, she is on the high end of the spectrum. There are those families that have children that suffer severely, and my heart goes out to them, because we haven't had to go through that type of severity with autism. But that's why it's called a spectrum, because you have people on, with every type from severe to the high functioning.
Which is probably also why it's so frustrating for so many families and healthcare professionals, because they can't necessarily pinpoint.
Well, the thing is that a mother told me during this whole experience a quote that's kind of stuck with me. It's, when you've met one child with autism, you've only met one child with autism. Every case, whether high functioning or low functioning, is different. You can't find the exact same case somewhere else. And so that's kind of what really frustrates people. Some symptoms I might have, symptoms other people may not. And I think the only thing that connects us is a name. But I'm happy that I can be connected to people like this, and I can be part of a community, because for a long time I thought I was the only one, and that was a very unsettling thought.
I can only imagine, and especially growing up, to not be a part of any sort of community. And so, kind of piggybacking on that, what do you think can change to help those families then in all these unique different cases? What needs to change in the healthcare world, or just as far as awareness goes?
Well, I'm not a doctor, so I can't really help with healthcare or anything like that. But what I am trying to do is not only open adults' eyes to what's going on with their child, or what's going on with a student that they have, but what really starts, what really helps a child with autism is knowing that other people is going to accept them. And that starts with their classmates. I grew up not really having any friends, because no one really wanted to be the weird kid in the corner's friend. And I was the weird kid in the corner, and to a degree I still kind of am the weird kid in the corner, but I'm okay with that. And it just kind of gets to the point where, at least in my later years, I had a choice to go off and hang out with friends, and I had a choice to go be alone. I didn't have that choice in my early years, and I just want kids to open their eyes and show that autism isn't a disease. It's not, you can't catch it. It's something you're born with, and it doesn't make you a lousy person or anything like that. And it's amazed me how cruel kids can be at times. And so I just want them to see that this kid could grow up to be the next Miss Montana, and you're going to miss out on a fantastic friend.
That's right. I'm sure many did too. What are some of the misconceptions with the disease? Like you just said, you can't catch it. Or what are some of the other misconceptions that you've kind of battled as a parent and as someone who's on the spectrum?
Well, misconceptions are, one of the biggest ones is that people don't believe autism really exists.
Really?
Yes, I've run into people who think it's just a diagnosis for bratty kids.
Wow.
And it's just an excuse for them so they can go on, continue being bratty, and their parents can continue being bad parents.
Wow.
And if that was the case, I would have never had autism because I have 2 great parents. And it's just mind boggles me how people can continue to ignore this when it's now 1 in 50 kids who have autism now. And so we're growing in the community, but people still try to deny our existence. Another thing is that it's not caused by bad parenting. It's not a kid just throwing a fit because they're upset about something. They really do have a difficulty in certain settings. I remember that every kid loves to go to the grocery store with mom and dad. I didn't. I hated the grocery store. And
Was it just, it was overwhelming? Or?
well, and often in many autism cases, there's a thing called sensory overload. And a place like a grocery store is probably a worst nightmare for kids who are very sensitive, because not only do so like 17 smells come batting into your nose, the lights are making annoying hums, the freezers are making annoying hums, the temperature is different from one aisle to the other, and that can really take a toll on an autistic kid. And I still have problems with that. I usually go to the grocery store, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get this and I'm gonna get the heck out.
What was that like when you were performing in Vegas?
Well, usually when I know something's coming, I can be prepared for it. Like, I knew the crowd was gonna be loud. It's a Miss America pageant. I knew the lights were gonna be bright. So I was ready for that. And I kind of went in the same mindset as Miss Montana and everything like that. So I think the only time that I wasn't prepared was when I was announced as America's Choice. Because I could hear my sister screaming. I'm just like, that's not a noise I'm supposed to hear right now.
You could pinpoint your sister in the crowd.
Yes.
That's really amazing.
Both of them.
Oh, you have 2 sisters.
I have
okay.
2 sisters.
One twin, and then is the other one older?
Older.
Yeah. Older, okay.
And she's
and a brother.
graduating. And a
Graduating
brother.
from college?
Yes.
What college?
Stevens College in Columbus?
Columbia.
Columbia,
Okay.
Missouri.
Oh, good for her. Okay, and you have a brother too.
Yes.
Okay, we can't leave him out.
No.
So we were talking a little bit about therapy, and you and I were talking before the show. If I was asking if there was any sort of therapy that was offered to you through insurance, you said she just learned things through life.
She did.
So how did you work with her? Or sorry, Alexis, not to talk like you're not here, but how did you work with Alexis to start to learn those coping methods and to prepare her that she knows that she's gonna have sensory overload, to kind of get her to know what steps she can self-talk, I guess, to make her handle a situation?
Well, I'd like to say that we taught her a whole lot, but if nothing else, she taught us a lot. She taught the family what was okay for her. And one of the things that we will be forever grateful to the late Steve Jobs for is the creation of the iPod. It has been her saving grace for ever since she was ever since I had one. Ever since, yeah, like middle school type. Because it would allow her to shut the rest of the world out, allow her to kind of decompress and prepare for what was going to come. And she would do this in the morning, and she would pace. Because one of the things that you'll find with a lot of kids on the spectrum is that they have some type of stemming behavior, and that's the term that they'll use.
Self-stimulation.
And that's what it's about, is something that will calm them, whether it's rocking back and forth, walking in patterns.
Something repetitive.
Okay.
Yes, it's a repetitive action. And so this was what would calm her
walked in
down.
circles. That's what I
And
did.
would you listen to music?
Yes.
Okay. And so you still do that?
Yes.
And what are you thinking when you're doing that, or are you telling yourself?
No,
like-
the whole point of the whole thing is not to think.
Okay.
It's thinking about anything will stress me out further, so I just kind of shut off and go into autopilot at that point. And it's funny how Mom and Dad kind of learned just by watching, but I remember my sister Danielle, my older sister, decided to pull an experiment. So I was downstairs early in the morning, because back in high school it only took me like 2 minutes to get ready because I hated makeup.
You
and
were Miss Montana.
I wasn't Miss Montana, and I wasn't even thinking of being Miss Montana at that point. And so I was downstairs walking, so she comes downstairs, and she says absolutely nothing. She just stands in my path.
Okay.
And of course, I just turn around and go the other way, but that day was a really bad day for me.
Really?
Any change in my stimming behavior, it will affect the rest of my day. And I've talked to kids on the spectrum, and the same thing has happened to them. So these repetitive things are very important to our lifestyle. At times, this is probably the only structure I have in my Miss Montana life right now because it's so unpredictable.
Right, that would be difficult because you're not prepared for a lot of stuff, but you start your day with that.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
And so when we will see her stressing out or having problems, we'll say, why don't you go listen to your iPod? Or, why don't you, because we know that that'll help refocus the day. And
we could probably all use those timeouts.
I would agree with you.
We probably all could use our own little stemming, like, okay, let's get back to square one. When did you start kind of coming into your own, I guess, and kind of starting your tagline of autism doesn't define me?
Well, I was kind of ashamed of it for a long time because I didn't want anyone to know about it because, first off, I didn't know until 11, so I was afraid kids were going to say I made it up. And so I really kind of separated myself from my classmates. But by the time my junior year rolled around, I had actually gained friends because I got involved in school. I pushed my comfort zone, and it ended up really working in my benefit. So my senior year rolled around, and they did this town paper did an article on Autism Awareness Month. And they decided to interview parents and kids who have autism and is affected by autism, and I decided if it's coming out, might as well go big as Cut Bank, Montana can get. And so I published my story in the newspaper, and people came up to me.
Did you wrote your story?
No, someone else. They interviewed me.
But it was the first time you guys really shared your story. Okay.
Yes.
It's not that we hid it. It was just something that we kept with family and friends and her teachers, and it just wasn't something that we went out
and talked a lot about. Is it therapeutic to talk a lot about it? I know you have been, obviously, in the past year.
No.
Is it difficult?
It was difficult at the beginning because not only did they want to know about the diagnosis, but they wanted to know about the hardships growing up. And that, of course, I got a little choked up about because I want to forget all that. I want to move on and focus on the better parts of my life, but they do want to know what it's like to be a kid like me growing up. So when I'm talking about bullying and stuff, I will sometimes choke up, and I remember one time I just ended up starting crying in the middle of a presentation. I felt like such an idiot.
In the past year, or
this past year?
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was more at the beginning of the year when Miss Montana is still awkward and still trying to fit into the high-heeled shoes. But as time went on, I find it more easier. This is what I feel like a confession cam in like survival feels like. You just let everything out. And it just kind of gets to the point where this was my life, and even though I'm talking about it, I'm not dwelling on it. I don't hold a grudge against any of the bullies or anything. And I'm a little awkward because I'm afraid that my schools are going to want me to go speak, and I'm just like, oh, but how are they going to take that?
I'm sure you're inspiring a lot of kids, though, that are going through that right now. Oh my gosh, my heart melted when you got America's Choice, and I think this little girl posted on Facebook, and she was dressed up as Miss Montana, and it just brought tears to my eyes. How does it? Sorry, not to make it to yours.
No, I was incredibly overwhelmed with joy. I was bouncing off the walls, and what I love to tell people, because it's absolutely true, I'm all composed and waving to everyone, and waving to my sisters and everything like that. The moment commercial break, I looked like a cartoon. Those eyeliner streaming down my face. I was crying my eyes out. They had a giant box of tissues. It was like I was in a cartoon. And I remember the stage manager, he was a great guy, but he's yelling at me to get a hold of myself because commercial break's only 2 minutes long. And I remember Brooke Boak-Chauvet is patting me on the back, and so not only was I crying, I was making a fool of myself in front of the host of Dancing with the Stars. And so I was just so happy, the fact that America's trying to tell me to keep going. And it was incredible, and I feel like because of my story, I brought a whole new audience to the Miss America's front, and I feel really honored that I was able to do that, because I never thought I'd be doing anything with my future for the longest time, because there was a time when my grades were on the toilet, and I did not like who I was, and I'm happy to say I'm here talking to you with my mom and with a crown on my head, which I still believe is a dream. But this is something I never imagined would be happening, and to be actually voted by America as their favorite in a pageant called Miss America was probably one of the most important awards I could have gotten now.
You brought a whole other level to the pageant. It's been around for a long time, but you definitely shook things up this year, and it was cool. It was cool to watch. I paid attention the whole time, and when you got America's Choice, I was screaming along with everyone else, so but it's exciting.
I think you're right there as far as bringing a different side of what a lot of people don't realize about the Miss America organization is that it really is a service-oriented organization. You know, people think of beauty queens and you know, kind of that ego-based, and that's really not the organization at all. Every girl has to have a platform, and you know, for some it's going to be more passionate than others, and obviously Alexis lives her platform every day, as does our family. But I think that's what connected with people, is that instead of it being about someone else, it was something that she could talk from direct experience.
I think that's a good point.
And I think bringing the entire special needs community, not just the autism community,
Right.
and that was through her work with organizations such as Ability Path, and which deals with special needs families all over the country. And so I think it kind of transcended Montana, and it just, I mean, we were getting Facebook pages and messages from people out of the country even. And she's got a group down in Australia that, you know, she's got, and all over. So, I mean, it's just been really, really interesting to see who's been touched by it.
It's so moving, and it's really inspiring. And
Thank you.
you're 19?
I'm going to be 19.
Going
yes.
to be 19. Talk about life accomplishments. So June is when you're passing on the crown. What are you doing after? I know it's a little bittersweet for you.
I'm planning on going to college.
Okay, where are you going to go?
I don't know yet.
You don't know?
I had a set plan on going to University of Montana, Missoula.
I'm a Grizzly, so
Yes,
I'm all for that.
yes. But I had a set plan on doing that, but so many doors have opened up
Oh,
because
I
of
can
this.
only
I
imagine.
don't know. But what I do know is that I feel like I've proven to the world that just because you're different doesn't mean you're less. And any girl, no matter what her challenges are, can be Miss America if they want to. And that was the biggest thing I probably could have accomplished at Miss America.
Do you want to continue competing in pageants?
I don't know. I don't see it in the tea leaves right now. I'm thinking about hanging up the crown for a little while and going back to my running shoes, but...
Because you ran cross country,
Yes.
right? Okay, so you're going to run and go to school, buckle down,
Yes.
but continue working on your cause.
yes, I'm forever going to be an advocate.
Of course. Okay. All right, well, I think that's all the time we have. Thank you guys so much. It was great to
Thank
talk with
you.
you this morning,
you.
and thanks for joining us today on Face the State.
Thanks for watching Face the State. This has been a presentation of Montana's news station. Fair, accurate, to the point.